Good afternoon, everybody. Today is Wednesday, August 23rd, 2017, and this is the Intrinsic Motivation from a Homie's Perspective. This is Hamza.
And I'm David.
And today we have a special guest on. We have Karen Miller, and really excited to talk to Karen on our podcast. Just a little backstory. We met at a Paul Selig event here in Atlanta, and I thought that she lived here in Atlanta, and when I went to the next Paul Selig meeting, she wasn't there. Come to find out that she didn't live in Atlanta. She lived in Wisconsin, which I'm sure she'll tell us about in her background. But she was a good friend of Sherry, who actually runs the Paul Selig group here in Atlanta. And Sherry and I were talking about, different things, channeling and so on and so forth. And I had mentioned a trip that David and I, and actually we're probably looking at between 10 to 12 people potentially to go to Peru for an ayahuasca retreat. Sherry goes, oh my goodness, you really need to speak to Karen because Karen's been multiple times and she can kind of lead you in the right direction. And so Karen and I talked briefly about it, and just the little conversation that we had, I thought it would be great for our audience to hear more about it. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Karen Miller. Welcome to the show, Karen.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yes. So before going straight into the ayahuasca retreat, because you didn't just wake up and then decide you're going to take an ayahuasca retreat, could you give us a little bit of your background and what led you to going on your initial trip down to Peru?
Well, I've always been sensitive to the things that resonate with me. Just hearing like a phrase or a spiritual teaching, if it strikes an inner chord, even as a child, like I would notice that and just really keep thinking about that phrase over and over again. And there was a Unitarian church in the neighborhood where I grew up in Indiana. And they always had a marquee outside, and they'd put a new phrase up. It would be something from Thoreau or from an Eastern philosopher. And I would read it, and I'd think about it over and over again. And I think that there was just something in my soul that's always been trying to connect back to source. And when I first heard about ayahuasca, it was on a radio interview. It was late night radio, and I was picking up one of my kids from something at midnight, and the radio was on, and it was Graham Hancock talking about ayahuasca in Peru, and I just thought, I'm going to do that. I want to do that. That's for me. Definitely. That's definitely. But it was so not inside my regular life as, living in Houston, Texas, and I was an attorney at the time and had 3 children. But I just had that kind of in my, I kind of just put it I would say now in my vortex, like something one day I definitely was going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went 10 years ago. That was in 2007, and this was probably 2 years before that, before I ended up going.
Oh, okay. And that was the first time in 2000, so 2009?
But 2005, I heard about it for the first time.
Okay, and then 2007 you went, and that was the first time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So when you were living, did it feel like you were living a double life? Like you were living the, I guess, status quo, wife, family, children, going to church on Sunday, but you had something else that was drawing you in another direction. Did it feel that way?
Well, it was just, it was so outside of my life that I really, it was just I want to do that. But I really didn't see any way to connect the dots it wasn't like I was actively trying to do it. It was just went in my vortex. It went in my vortex of creation. All of a sudden it was on the menu of what I could have. It went from something I didn't even know about to something, hey, I could do that. Because Graham Hancock, I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's a journalist, a British journalist. He sounded normal. And he was and he had gone and he had taken his children who were in their 20s. And I just thought, wow, that sounds amazing. I mean, a way to it's a visionary medicine that's plant-based that you do under the care of shamans who are trained. And it's something that has been done in the Amazon for thousands of years.
Yeah.
And it's visionary. So it's not a hallucinogen as much as you see a vision of what's already there, but that in our ordinary waking state, we don't have access to. But with the plant medicine, now we have access to see these other realms. And I just thought, well, that's for me. I want that. And then I had all this healing. It's a plant that is also a teaching medicine and a healing medicine, and it has all these benefits. And I thought, well, no downside. I mean, to me, I didn't see there was a downside. It just sounded like, who wouldn't want to do that?
Yeah. How much research did you do before that first trip?
What's that?
I said, how much research did you do before that first trip?
Not really that much. I just it kind of just went. I don't even know. I think I told my husband about it. Like, oh, I want to do this, and he was like, okay, whatever. Like, you're crazy. And then, but I think this is the miraculous part of it, is that it just kind of went, okay, so all of a sudden now it's on my menu of something I'd like to do one day, and I don't have any big plans. I'm not trying to make it happen, but like a year and a half later, my husband gets it in his idea. He really wants to go to Peru to go to Machu Picchu. Mm-hmm. So he plans a trip, like to take the whole family and go to Machu Picchu and do the trek. And then I just like all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute, I could go do that ayahuasca thing I want to do. So then it was like all of a sudden it was like, oh, I'm going to be in Peru anyway. I want to go do that ayahuasca thing. And anyway, so that's how I ended up going the first time. It was really kind of like, I would say the universe set it up for me to go. Mm-hmm. Because it really wasn't even in my world to be like so bold as to just research it and go and take a trip to Peru by myself.
Yeah. So then you went ahead and your family. You went ahead and your family. You guys went down to Peru, but you're the only one that went and did the ayahuasca.
Yeah. So what ended up happening was I went a couple weeks early and flew to Iquitos, which is in the jungle in the northern part of Peru, and I went to ayahuasca camp out in the middle of the jungle. So there's a little city called Iquitos, and you can only access it through plane or by boat. It's on a tributary of the Amazon. And it's kind of a place sometimes people go when they're going to take an Amazon cruise. So it's this funky little town really in the middle of the jungle, a jungle town. And then we met, like the people came from all over the world to go out to this jungle camp. I think there were like a maximum of 25 guests. And we took a bus, like, out into the jungle and stayed in little huts. And they provided everything. You know, we just stayed there for, I think it was 8 or 9 days and had 5 ayahuasca ceremonies during that time.
Okay. Was it Kapatari? Is that the place you stayed at?
The one I went to is called Blue Morpho.
Okay. And
Hamilton Souther is the shaman. He's an American, and he was fantastic. He was just awesome. Really
Okay.
great. And there was also, a shaman who was local, who's there for every ceremony. He was Hamilton's teacher.
Okay. And so I know you've done, right now we're just talking about the first trip, and I know you've done, you went, 5 times total so far?
Right. I've done 5 tours. So
okay.
Each time.
5?
What's
did
that?
Did you go to the same place all 5 times?
Yes.
Okay.
Every time I went to the same place. Yeah.
Okay.
And I would recommend it. I mean, that's the only place that I have experience with, but I felt really taken care of there, and I think they do a great job taking care of their guests, and it's quality. It's really, the shamans are really good.
So once you were there, how long before you had the first session or first of ayahuasca?
I think that they, and they may have changed it up a bit, but the first night is kind of an orientation, and then the second day that you're there, you actually make the ayahuasca.
Okay.
So the guests participate in the whole process, because it takes like a whole bunch. It actually takes a lot of hours to make it. The ayahuasca is a vine, and the vine has to be like pounded with hammers to make it, like if you think about a thick vine, to make it more stringy. Mm-hmm. And then that goes into a giant pot. Like there's, I don't know, they had maybe 5 giant pots cooking over an open fire. So that goes into the pot, and the leaves of the chacuna tree or bush go into the pot, and then a whole bunch of other barks that are have barks of different trees that have the spirits. So different types of spirits go into the pot, and it's filled with water, and then it's boiled and boiled and boiled and boiled, and then cooled and strained, and then you end up with this really thick drink that tastes terrible. And it's funny because the first time I drank it, I thought, okay, not so bad. I got it down. But then the second ceremony, I was just like, ugh, just the thought of it. The taste just got worse and worse every time.
So the first ceremony, how much do you drink?
Really not that much. Maybe they serve it in these little cups, and a quarter cup was plenty for me, but I only weigh about 110 pounds, so that was plenty. So I guess that would be like, I don't know, like 4 tablespoons maybe.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
That packed a punch.
Yeah. And
4 tablespoons.
Because the more it's in your system, the more it's in your body, and it always stays with you, because what you're doing is you're inviting the spirit of ayahuasca to be inside of you and to dominate the spirits that you don't need anymore or are detrimental, that you've picked up along the trail, and cast them out is what the ayahuasca does. So that spirit of ayahuasca, which is a really positive, life-affirming spirit, stays inside of you forever. And so when you take it, the second ceremony, it's already in you, and you don't need as much. So unlike some things like drugs that you might need more of the next time, with ayahuasca, you actually need very little.
Oh.
Make it less and less and less. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so now that you're at the first ceremony, you drank your first bit of ayahuasca. How long before it starts taking effect, and/or just what was go ahead and talk about the experience. What was it like?
Well, it's it's like being on an airplane with a lot of turbulence. How that feels. Like, that doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
It feels really scary. Even though you know that you're safe and you're probably not going to crash, like when you're on a plane, you're just like, you just have to kind of get through the turbulence. And there's no way through it, except to go through it. And that's what it's like with the ayahuasca. Like, I experienced a lot of turbulence, especially the first 5 ceremonies I was in. I had lots of turbulence. I felt very nauseous. It's typical to purge, which is when the ayahuasca is dominating the spirits that are in you that are detrimental or no longer serving you, you throw up. That's how it purges it out of you. It typically comes like throwing up. So I didn't have a lot of throwing up, but I just had a lot of nausea and feeling really terrible. I don't know what to compare it to, except maybe like when you're sick with a flu and you just feel horrible, like your whole body doesn't feel good, and you want to throw up, but you're not throwing up, and that's almost worse than that's a lot worse than throwing up. Needing to throw up is worse than throwing up. So it's really something, because at the same time the shamans are singing. They start singing acaros, which are the traditional songs, and those songs are energetic. So the songs and the music, which is just so simple, it's just using the leaves, dried leaves, and sometimes they go into whistling also. But they're singing, and that brings up the energy of the ayahuasca. So they're the shamans are managing the whole room and kind of the group experience through the singing and through bringing up the energy. So they start singing, and then it's like the energy starts building and building and building. And what I experienced it was like climbing up. My vision was climbing up like stairs, like being led up. It almost like in a temple, like just climbing stairs, like climbing energetically. And then I got to the place where I was filling up. And then that just felt like, I don't know, like if you could imagine just throwing up lifetimes, just like letting go of lifetimes of everything, all the beliefs, all the identities that I've carried, and just really, just letting it all go. But I had the sense that I was really being supported by angelic beings, like they knew that this was going to happen. And I had said yes to it, and so they were there for me for the process. And so that was
like your girlfriends?
What's that?
Were they like your girlfriend in college that they held your hair?
Yeah. Knowing that I was pathetic, but I was going to make it, that kind of like a girlfriend holding your hair being like, it's okay, tomorrow it will come, and you're fine. I got your back, I got your hair. Yeah. So, and then after that, and I will add, the whole room is throwing up. So it's like this orchestra of, blah, I'm sure it's quite comical. Like if you're not participating in ayahuasca, it's probably just quite comical. But so then there's this whole round of everyone is purging, and then you break through or at least my experience was breaking through the turbulence, and then it was actually that's why you come, is for that when you break through. And it was quite visual, and I learned, and it was quite informative. Like it was really teaching me things, not like when you go to sit in a workshop and you hear things and you're like, yeah, I know that, and it resonates, but more at such an experiential level that it was like, wow, like, I got it. You know, and you still are afraid you're going to lose it because, like, that's what happens too. You like, you get it, and then you lose it, and then you get it, and then you lose it, and then you get it, and then eventually it sticks. But it was for me really just, I feel like I was called to do it, like my soul wanted to do it. It was just part of my path, and I did learn so much. I mean, I just had all kinds of like specific downloads that I got that I don't know that I would have gotten other ways. Maybe I would have, but this was the way my soul chose to learn. So
back up for a second when we're talking about expectations, right? So it's my understanding that you have to adhere to some type of strict diet 10 days to 2 weeks before you actually go, right? And then the other thing that, since you've gone multiple times, it makes me think of, like, freshman year of college, you bring so much stuff, like your whole life. And then when you go back second year, you have, like, a suitcase, and that's it. So could you talk about your expectation as far as preparing to go, and then what's it like? Does it get easier as you've done the multiple trips, and what's that been like?
Yeah, I think the anxiety level goes way down. Like at first, there's just anxiety because you're a newbie and you don't know what's going to happen, and it's just kind of scary. And my experience was, I cleared so much that first tour, the first 5 times, that when I came back, which was maybe 6 months later or 4 months later, it was completely different. Like it wasn't nearly as turbulent, and I felt like there was something like specifically. I had to experience the first time in one of the ceremonies of being on the edge of this. It was like a vortex, like a funnel, but then like a funnel, and then there was this narrow place, and then it got wide at the bottom, like 2 funnels put together. And the energy was just moving through it, moving like up and down and through it, and like it was completely like flowing and circulating between these connected funnels. But yet I was on the outside of it, and it was like I just felt like I was almost there, and there was a certain pitch to it. And I talked to the shaman about it when I came back. Like, I really came back because I felt like that part was incomplete for me. Mm-hmm. And he said, and I said, if we could just slow the funnel down. And he said, no, Karen, we can't slow it down, but you can speed yourself up.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, yeah, I need to speed up my vibration. I get it. You know, it's like, and that's what I'm here to do. And it was like, I mean, this image of the funnel, I really have been, like, interested in and researching it. And, like, sometimes you see it. Sometimes I've seen it other places, like, as a spiritual symbol or metaphor. And I think what it was showing me was, because the message I got was, well, I was calling it, it's a happy popsicle ride. And it was like, this is why we're all here, for this happy popsicle ride. And I had the sense that everyone in the room was having my experience, which of course they weren't. They were having their own.
Right.
But it was like, this is what I'm here for in this life, to have this connected flow of energy, which you could call it now, or maybe I would call it now, being in the vortex, or because that's what I had the sense of, like, somehow I'm seeing the vortex, but I'm not in it. I'm on the outside of it. And the outside of it is bumpy, but when you're at the at the inside, when you're inside, when you're at the center of the tornado, it's calm. You know, when you're at your own center, coming from your heart center, it's not a bumpy ride. It's quite peaceful and still. And it may also be, you know, symbolic of being like having the fully aligned chakras and having your light body illuminated and what's possible in life, like being in a human body and still being fully connected to source and to source energy and being turned on, like, and flowing and in that flow, in that vortex flow. So, so that was huge for me. It was just like this huge, like, yeah, I want that. And I see that I'm not there, but it's right there for me, and I'm so close. So, so when I came back, I kind of came back knowing that I was gonna, that I would be stepping into it, and yeah, I came back. It was just totally different, so much easier the second time. I mean, it's just like, I think like whenever we do things in life, like the first year at a job is so hard, and then there's a learning curve, and then you're like, know what to expect and know what parts you can relax into, and so yeah, it just gets better. But that's not to say I want to keep doing it. You know, it's still really hard work. It's like, it's better, but it's still really hard work every time you go. It's every ceremony is you don't know what to expect.
So, just to go back real quick, that first time, so you drank it. How long does I don't know how to say it, the experience last before you feel it, you know, you come down, or however you want to phrase it?
Yeah, the shamans are managing that, and they probably one of the most pleasant parts of the ceremony is when they bring the energy down, and people are one by one kind of coming to and coming out of the ayahuasca, and kind of there's a bit of, it's still pitch black. The ceremony is done in the pitch black because you can see the visions better when it's super dark.
Oh, wow.
And you're out in the jungle. I should add, there was no electricity or hot water at the camp.
For 9 days?
Yeah. So the showers were cold, and you needed lots of showers because that actually helped, like, kind of bring the ayahuasca down, like the next day when you're just still kind of reeling. It's like to take a shower and have that cold water on the top of your head, right on your crown, was really helpful. But yeah, so it was really cold. The showers were, and so you're in the pitch black, and so I would say about 3 hours. Like a ceremony typically is about 3 hours. I felt the effects of the ayahuasca within just maybe 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I think my nervous system is probably sensitive, and then there are people who go for a second dose. Like they take half a cup and they don't feel anything, or don't feel much, or don't have the effects. So that's possible too.
Have you ever done the edibles at all?
Like mushrooms?
Not mushrooms, but like a weed brownie or something like that.
Yeah.
Because it sounds a lot of like that. If you could kind of talk to that, because what you just said, I'm just thinking of myself or David, or with other people. When you first take that brownie, you take a first bite. Oh, this didn't do anything. Like other people around you may feel it, and you're like, I'm going to eat 5 brownies, and then you wind up having a terrible experience.
Yeah, they just, there's usually a place like maybe half an hour or 45 minutes after everyone's been served where they kind of announce if you'd like to have more, you can come up and have more. So people do. I mean, sometimes. So, but yeah, I mean, I think because there is that special diet. I mean, you mentioned that briefly. So before, there's certain foods that don't go well with ayahuasca, like sugar. And they don't want, it's better not to have, like afterwards, you don't use any drugs or alcohol for 30 days. And pork, you don't, at least at my camp, no pork for, I think it was a month or 6 months. I can't remember, but I just stopped, after that, just stopped eating pork anyway. But there's just foods that don't do well with ayahuasca, and while you're at the camp, the diet's quite restricted. Like I don't think we had any fruit at all. We had vegetables and very plain food. I think there was chicken and eggs, and a lot of rice and fish. But it was pretty plain, so it wasn't bad. I mean, I thought the food was fine, but. And then there's also, at Blue Morpho, they also give you the option to do an even more restricted diet, which they called the dieta. And that was a diet, a very restricted diet of, I think we had eggs, like hard-boiled eggs, white rice, fish, and I don't know what. I mean, it was but every day the same thing. And the purpose of that restriction was to be able to participate in drinking a tea every day, especially doing an extra ceremony with the shaman where you drink tea that has been made out of the bark of trees. And from, like, if you think about the cosmology of the Indians in Peru, or the natives, is that everything has spirits. So when you drink a bark that's been soaked in tree bark, you're actually ingesting tree spirits. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to do that because I love trees. So I was like, I want to do that. And so the last two tours I went on, I did dieta and got to participate with the tree spirits because I thought, well, that would be neat. You know what I mean? That would be kind of a way to get closer to trees that I already love, and also, just even take it a little bit deeper. But you can do that right off the bat. I mean, a lot of people do. They do the dieta and the drinking the tea from the trees.
Yeah. How long between the first time, on that first trip and the first time you drank it before the next session? Was it like a day or two?
The way at Blue Morpho, it was like, I think we did, I'm trying to remember how it was divided, but I think they did like 3 ceremonies, like the first night was like a orientation, and then a ceremony, 3 nights in a row, and then we had a day off, and then we did the last 2 ceremonies.
Oh, okay, I see.
And then then I think we went home. So it was like 8 or 9 days.
Yeah.
But they told us this is going to seem like the longest week of your life, and it did. 5 ceremonies sounds like, well, that's not that much. It is so much ayahuasca. You're just like when that day comes that you have a break day, you so need it. You're just like, and all we do all day is lay around. I mean, people are just laying around. You can read. There's hammocks to like chill out in, and rocking chairs, and there was a little lake to go, soak in. But it was like, it just like you're just exhausted and tired, and then there would be those last 2 days. You'd be like, thank God, it's almost over. So it's like you can go away on a vacation, but you feel like you've been gone a year. It's just like, it just seems like such a long time. So, but it was really. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, was there ever a point on your first trip where you were saying to yourself, what did I get myself into?
I mean, I really 100% wanted to be there. I mean, like,
Okay.
I was really 100% clear that I wanted to be there, and that this was something that was beneficial to me. So I didn't. I know that does happen to people sometimes, where they really second guess themselves and want to split.
Yeah.
but
Did that happen within that group? That you said there was about 25, and that first time you went, did anyone like say, "All right, that's it, I'm out of here. This isn't for me"?
No.
Nobody.
I don't think ever when I was there did anyone ever. In that first time, there was a woman who told me afterwards that she didn't drink the ayahuasca for one ceremony. She just felt like maybe it was the fourth ceremony. She was just like, I just needed a break.
Mm-hmm.
And Hamilton, the shaman, said, well, why don't you just come to ceremony but don't drink? So that's always an option. Or, and the other thing that I think is really good advice or helpful is you don't need to drink very much. Like, you could just have, because when you go up to the shaman, they ask you how much ayahuasca you want, and you can tell them you only want a quarter cup, or even less than a quarter cup, just a little bit. And ideally, I think this is ideal, is you only want enough to get you where you're seeing the visions and you're in the experience. Because you could be sitting in the ceremony with no ayahuasca, and that would be okay. That's one way to do it. Or you could sit in the ceremony and just have had enough, like 1 tablespoon, which may be for you enough that you still are seeing visions, and that would be perfect. I mean, there's no reason to take so much that you're miserable.
Yeah.
And what on one of the ceremonies, like one of the last times I went, they put me in the shower I was in the shower, I guess, for an hour. Because,
wow.
Yeah, I mean, so that's one of the ways they take care of the guests if a guest is really spinning out, like really, I don't think I was having, I think I was I was just vocalizing a lot. Like, I was just like talking a lot. Which people do that, it's not, it was like almost like making noise. Oh, well, I will say this, like the very first ceremony or the second ceremony in that first time, I started to just say, it's a movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's a movie. And it felt so good to say it that it was like I just couldn't stop saying it. But I mean, so that sounds crazy, but that was my experience. And my experience was definitely like the medicine was showing me that this life experience that we're having is a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not just a metaphor. I mean, a lot of times there is the metaphor that we're an actor in our own movies and we're writing our own scripts and we're creating a movie. But it was like it really was a movie. It was like absolutely what each of us is seeing through our own little eyes is like a movie that we'll rewatch later over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
So when you notice?
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to ask, when you finally got back to the States, what did you notice in the ensuing days and weeks or months after? Did you notice, as it probably your body was, your body and spirit integrating all that? What did you notice, if anything?
I really, I think it really did profoundly make a difference in my life in terms of how happy I was. Like, I started being, I think, more present to my life and less future-oriented. And, I still like to plan. I still like to I still am a bit future-oriented. But I really started getting happy with life. Like I stopped, I would just say I think I used to really fight life, and now I don't do that as much. And as a result, I just felt a lot more free to be myself. I don't know, like I felt like less constrained by who I'd been in the past or my social roles. And I mean, I like right now talking about ayahuasca. Like when I first got back, I loved talking about it. And, you know, because it was like one of the most profound things I've done in my life, like really made such a huge impact on me and taught me so much. And so I just got happier. I just got like, I was just more myself. And the more we are ourselves and the freer we are from our past, it's just like we can just be present to whatever life presents and just be with that. And so I would say I just started really getting happy. So, and less frustrated. Like before I would get frustrated with people and I'd want them to see it my way and do it my way. And I'd wonder why they weren't cooperating. And yeah, and now it's like, I don't know. It's just like that's not such a problem for me anymore.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah, I mean, not to say that it's totally gone, but that was a shift for me.
So I imagine.
Let me ask you. Hold on, before you go back to the States, I want to still stay in Peru for a little while. So, because it just seems so magical, right? And you know, this is before our trip, so we're looking at going in the beginning of January, early February at the latest. And offline, we were talking. You and I were talking about a lot of people want to go to do the retreat and then they want to go to Machu Picchu. You've done both instances where you didn't do the retreat, you did do the retreat and Machu Picchu secondly, or you did Machu Picchu first and then did the retreat. Like, what are your different scenarios and experiences doing trying to do both? As Americans, we try to have a package deal, and I wanted to get your opinion on that.
I might just say just give yourself a rest day in between. Like if you're like, as Americans we try to like you're going to do 5 ayahuasca ceremonies and then fly to the mountains and hike for 4 days. That's a lot on your body. So I would say give yourself a rest day. Like when you get into, if you want to do it, do it. But when you get to Cusco in the mountains, that would be a good day to just acclimate to that high altitude and not try to, don't hit the ground running, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If you can, if you can work in a day off, it's a wonderful city just to explore. And when I went, the first time I went, I met my family, and we were in Lima for a day and then a night. And then we went to Cusco, and we were all going to do this hike. And my husband, he's my former husband, my then husband, he had incredible altitude sickness and he crashed on the sidewalk. And then he couldn't do the hike because he was so sick from the altitude. So that's something you're putting your body through a lot. Anytime you fly into 8,000 feet, and then you're going to climb higher. So just take it, if you can, take a day to just relax. And then maybe the next day, do one of the tours around the Sacred Valley, which is fantastic, before you start the hike. This is a lot. But you'll all be together, so you'll have a support system, so that won't be so bad. But what I have learned, what's that?
I'm curious if I know I play a lot of different roles. Like there's the spiritual Hamza, there's business Hamza, there's social Hamza, and I was just wondering if you had some type of switch where you had this phenomenal, life-changing event for the retreat, and then you went back to mom and wife mode with the family. Like, how easy was it for you to make that transition?
Well, I felt like, I was stepping back into being with my family, but I just felt like I had left behind so much baggage. So I was there, like, more like who I really am.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so happy to see my family. Like, I just felt so much love. I really connected through the ayahuasca with all I am is love. So it was like a huge treat to be with these people I really loved after doing the ayahuasca. I was so happy to be with them. It was awesome. And I love stepping back into the mom role. Like, even now, my kids are grown, but it's like whenever I get to be mom again, it's awesome. I'm like, I don't want to do it every day, but it's awesome to get to be mom. It's really fun. So, but I did get I got a lot of clarity about my life and how I was living my life, and what was really important to me. I got a lot of clarity doing the ceremonies. So it was the beginning of a lot of changes. So that's one thing. It's a positive, but it's also like you can't imagine how it's going to change you. Like, for the better, but still, change isn't always easy.
Yeah. So the ensuing trips after the first one, did you just each time go by yourself, or did your husband say, hey, I'm going to try this, or any family member or even friends, did anyone say, hey, I'm going to go with you, or did you go by yourself every time?
I went by myself every time. I would have loved to have my husband go with me. He was not. That was something he was just not at all interested in doing.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and then I told a lot of people about it, but mostly people, it's not for everybody.
Right.
But there were groups that had family members with them, like who had gone themselves, and then they come back with their spouse. And I thought that was really cool. Because it is such a peak experience, and to share that with people you love is a really great thing. It's very magical. I think it really brings people close together.
I imagine, and I don't know if you would know this, but the Native Americans here in this country, the ceremonies that they have with peyote is probably a similar thing, or the American version of what they're doing down there in Peru. Would you say?
Yeah, I would probably. Yeah, it's visionary medicine, so it's shamans all over the world use different natural, mushrooms or other things are available in different parts of the world, and it's amazing how to me. We are so supported on this planet that there's just plants that are growing naturally that can open up our minds to other dimensions that are existing simultaneously and teach us. And one of the lessons that I learned, and I'll share this briefly because I think it's valuable to anyone, whether you do ayahuasca or not. But I learned that you can be in a dark space in ayahuasca and get yourself out. Just like in life, like we walk into a dark room sometimes, like whatever, life happens, or we wake up in just a horrible mood or beating ourselves up or feeling regret or there's a loss. and we're really in a dark space, or we have a breakup in a relationship, and we're in a dark room, and then it's like, how do I turn the light on in this dark room? And in ayahuasca, you can feel it coming, like it starts to close in, and you're like, oh, this is getting scary. And the shamans give us pointers about, like, okay, how do you move out of that room into a higher vibration, or a room that is not scary. And it's really about focusing your mind, focusing your attention. And I was in a very dark space where it was starting to get dark in the ayahuasca, and I started trying to, like, get out of it, like, consciously, like it's like being in a bad dream, and you're like, okay, how do I shift this dream? Okay, what can I think of to make myself, not here anymore, or in someplace else, or change the room, and I just started thinking about flowers, and it was just like a lifeline. And I started thinking about all the flowers my mom grew, and like how she would fill vases with flowers. And then I started thinking about the rain, and the rain falling on flowers and falling on me. And it was like instantly I was someplace else. It was like, but by focusing my attention, I made that shift. And that's, it's, you can do it. It's worth practicing before you go. Like, monitor where you are. Are you in the light room or the dark room?
Yeah.
Are you grumbling and you can't seem to stop? Well, how do you shift it? Like, start to practice consciously shifting your space. And then when you're in the ayahuasca, you'll have that little, you'll have worked that muscle, and you'll know how to do it. But it's something, once you learn it, you know that it's always, even if you can't instantly change your mood or, drop a negative conversation in your head, it's like you know that you can. And so it's like, have you ever been in that space where you're like, okay, I'm going to meditate even though I'm just I'm so upset, I'm so mad, but I'm just, or whatever, I'm just going to sit and meditate anyway, and then your mind says, what's the point? It won't work, and you just do it anyway, or you just do whatever it takes to feel better, and then all of a sudden you are like, oh, wait, I am feeling better. When did that happen? How did that happen? So that was something, I think, a huge takeaway for me with ayahuasca, to see that I actually have a lot more, I don't want to say control, but influence over my state of mind and how I'm perceiving things than I think I do.
So when was the last time you went, and when are you going next?
Well, I went 5 years ago, and I stayed in Peru. It was 5. I think it was 5 years. Maybe it was 4 years ago. But I stayed for a month, and I did back-to-back tours, which means I did a tour, then I had a week off, and I did another tour. And
wow.
And I will tell you, the whole time in between, I was in Iquitos, and I woke up in the middle of the night hearing Acaros. I woke up in the morning hearing Acaros. I took, I don't know how many showers a day just to bring the energy down. And it was almost like doing 3 weeks of ceremony.
Wow.
It was so much. It was, but it's a long way to go to Peru. So it's like, yeah. You might as well, if you can, make the most of it. So that was, I got a lot out of that trip. And then after that, I went to Cusco and went to Machu Picchu again by myself this time. And so anyway, I've actually been thinking about going in January, but I don't know if I'll go I might just wait a year. I've got another pilgrimage planned for the fall, so that I'm gonna wait, but eventually I'll probably go in the next couple of years. Just talking about it makes me want to go, because it's like, it is such a incredible peak experience to get to work with the medicine.
We'll keep room on the plane for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's great to go with you guys. You guys sound like an awesome crowd. So
We're coming up on the hour, but I wanted to ask you, have you found anything in a U.S. equivalent that you didn't have to fly across the world to go and get a similar experience?
Well, Hamilton Souther, who's the shaman who founded Blue Morpho, he's now based out of someplace in Colorado, and he's doing some online classes, like with the Acaros, and that would be, and I've participated in those, and it's like I'm not taking any substance to do it, but once the ayahuasca's in you, the spirits are always in you. So that would be like one thing you can do when you get home. Like it's amazing to like. I'm amazed with how he's such a incredible shaman, and he's really, with his voice, able to bring me on the journey. And it's like I can connect right back into it with his singing. So that would be something, just to connect with Blue Morpho in the United States.
Interesting.
Yeah, you definitely gave us, a lot to chew on. I'm sure we'll have you on to either before we go or right afterwards, if you're with us or not. I know I just signed up with a group here, the Psychedelic Atlanta, and there's some people, they're having their first meeting on Saturday, so there's some people that have gone to Peru, and it'll be good. It just seems like the stars are aligning, like it happened to you way back when, and it looks like it's aligning for our group to go too. Any last words before we head out?
Well, I just know that you're saying yes to a calling that's really from Spirit, and that's pretty awesome. And whenever we do that, whenever we answer that call, it's like the path is laid out before us. It's like it's wonderful. It's a wonderful way to live life, is to live, a spirit-based life, and it's an adventure. So you're going to have a great time, and it'll be like, just be prepared for lots of, like, it to unfold in its own way, but to learn lots about yourself.
No, that was well said.
Yeah.
And it was definitely a pleasure, Karen. And again, this is Karen Miller, and she was giving us her take as the expert over a 10-year period for the ayahuasca retreats in Peru. We definitely appreciate it. This is Intrinsic Motivation from a homie's perspective. This is Hamza.
And I'm David.
And we look forward to catching you guys on the next podcast. Thanks again, Karen.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.